Good afternoon, Cresswell, Mr. Welch. Thank you for coming down from up north.
Aberdeen.
That's a long distance. How did you travel?
Travelled to Edinburgh, jumped on a plane, 40 minutes, and I'm in Birmingham plane station.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for coming down. You have a fascinating journey, which we will go into. But I thought I'd just point out that we're at a place called Aston University. It has a fantastic reputation as a business school, so I thought it'd be great to bring you here. So I'd like to thank Aston University and Mark Smith in particular for all their support. And I thought this would be the ideal place to bring you. I did my MBA here, so it offers fantastic management courses and business courses. But of course, your journey didn't involve education at all, or maybe a really tiny amount, which is what fascinated me. So let me pick up your journey, if you don't mind, and I'll pick up education. Now, most kids in this country, they spend their first 16 years, especially 16 years, and maybe a bit after that, in what we call formal education in a school or a secondary school, and then may come to a place like this. But of course, you didn't. You didn't go to conventional schooling.
No, I didn't.
And yet you're a multi-millionaire running a successful business. In fact, I'll go as far as to say you can't read or write that well, can you?
I actually can't read and write, no. And Ninja, if you think I'm coming to this school to learn to read and write, you've got it wrong. I aren't.
And you did say you've never been into a university.
I haven't.
Ever.
No, I've barely been in a school. Maybe done 5-6 months schooling.
In your entire life?
My entire life, yeah. And it's not really a good thing, but going back 50 years ago, school didn't sort of have much interest for me.
But not only did not have interest, your background meant you couldn't go to school.
Well, yeah, as you know, my background is from a gypsy community.
Yeah.
And gypsy communities sort of travelled in the summertime.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime, sort of put the jacks down.
Yeah.
Or if they had a house, go back to the little house and travel throughout the summer. 9 months of the year travelling.
So that left you 3 months, if possible, to get some kind of education.
It left me 3 months of going to school, or I was supposed to be going to school, but my parents didn't know I wasn't really going to school.
Oh, okay.
So I can't blame the parents, really.
So what did you do?
Well, first started out, about 10 or 11-year-old, found an wholesaler where I went out and bought some towels and tea towels. There was a Jew family and a little wholesale shop in Darlington called Rubens. In this wholesale shop, travelling people went and bought bedding, carpets, rugs, but only at my age I had to buy a suitcase, then become 2 suitcases, where I went out and
So the age of 12, let me get this right. So at the age of 12, you were buying and selling product.
That's right, Ninja, I was, yes.
And you decided, I'm not going to go to school, I'm going to... And is that because you found school not interesting, or what was it about school you didn't like?
I didn't like the dinners. I just wanted to get out and explore things. I don't know, I had something in my head that I just wanted to go out and sell tea towels and towels.
Now, we spoke before, and I'm just wondering, and the reason I asked this question is because my parents came from northwest India, and it was difficult because of who they were to sort of integrate into their community. So being a gypsy, did being a gypsy work against you when you were at school? Could that be the reason you didn't go to school?
I'm not going to be be biased about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It didn't really. It did and it didn't. I suppose when we travelled and I was at school for 6 or 8 weeks,
Yeah.
I found it very difficult then, and especially because you come out of a caravan, you went across a field to a little school in a village.
Yeah.
That was maybe the difficult part. But then, you know, I only ever remember once being called gypsy.
Okay.
And the kids following me around a playground, and then, as I said to you earlier on, I had a little dog, a corgi dog, which reminded me just of the Jubilee just now.
Yeah, Jubilee. We're in the Jubilee weekend.
A little corgi dog called Rusty, and this little dog used to follow me across a field, across a little river, into a village school and wait at the school gate for me to come home. And that little dog at that time, as I said before, these little kids sort of run away because the little dog was protecting me. And so no, school was never a thing. I never, and I often think as today's standards, I wouldn't change nothing.
Interesting.
You know, obviously I want my family and my grandkids and all my family to be educated, and I don't have to send them to universities because today it's a lot to do with common sense. Oh, sense, as somebody said to me, is it common?
Which is not common. Yeah.
Which is not common.
So let's just pick up 12 years old, armed with a suitcase. You went and bought some product.
Correct.
You then sold the product. Now, so I'm just trying to get my head around this. So you have no education. So how did you know that you were doing a successful job of selling? How did you measure that? How did you know?
Well, if you really want to know the truth, I'll tell you how. In other words, how did I reckon up what money I was getting? How I made money. I was maybe started from a game of marbles when I went to school, and I was coming home with bags of marbles taken off the school kids. It was maybe not the nice thing, but if I started with 2 marbles and finished it with 50 marbles,
You knew you had a good day?
I know they had a good day with the marbles, so I just converted it into pounds.
So if you came back with more than you left, you knew you were winning.
Yeah, and you also had to have a couple of them big marbles. Can you ever remember them great big marbles? They used to knock the little marbles out easy.
Didn't I hear somewhere that so you were doing this what I think people would call a side hustle instead of going into school? you were hustling on the side, making good money. But didn't I hear you were also involved in tarmacking? Did you tarmac drives and?
Yeah, I got to an age that I suppose I just wanted to go tarmacking, and I did finish up tarmacking all around the world, from Africa, Brazil, Australia, Europe, Germany, Belgium, Holland. I've been around. I've done a lot of travelling with tarmacking.
So most people, 75% of businesses in the UK don't export. But you, at the age of 17, got on a plane, or you drove, ferry, and you drove, and I'm just so shocked that you didn't find that a huge risk going into countries which maybe you saw no risk because you didn't know any better.
Most probably I didn't know any better, if you want to know the truth. But there's no dangers going back a lot of years ago. There's not so many dangers as what there is today, is there? We're going back 40 years ago. Jumping on a ferry, Pinot ferries, and going to explore Europe was interesting. And like I say, I'd get the right contracts, talk to people and get a contract and do the work and, get paid for it and just kept going, until I bought my first caravan park.
So we spoke about you not being able to read or write because we've obviously explained about the education. So how did you understand contracts? And first I'm amazed you went abroad. I mean, most people don't go abroad. But there must have been contracts and things you had to sign. How did you make sense of what was in front of you?
Well, if you clock back, everything's digital today, everything's computers, but there wasn't so many contracts. It would be going and speaking to, finding someone that spoke English. We're talking about Germany just now, and if they spoke English, you just tell them you've got materials and you can do a fantastic job, whatever it was, but whatever story I give them then, and it was interesting to them for me to get machines in, tarmacking. I had 7 or 8 guys working for me, and just getting in, doing all the tarmacking and making decent jobs and getting jobs from jobs.
You also made a point that business was different because actually you didn't need as much paperwork because it was done on a handshake. That's
right, it was more of a, trustworthy, trustworthy. Today it's a faster world today, but yeah, it was more of a trust thing. And the trust thing was, it was nice.
So why have we lost that trust? Why? I mean, you've been in business a long time. Why have we lost that?
Well, it's not so much the trust. It's in business. I've found is that, you do trust. I'm a very trustworthy person myself, and maybe that's why I've sort of through my business career, I have been done out lots of money, by being too trustful. Sometimes it backfires on you, and a bit older you get, you a bit more, not less trusting, but you can more or less judge someone better.
That's the experience, isn't it?
It's the experience. That's the experience thing. You can't buy that. And as I said, you can't buy, but a sense, being sensible, and if you speak to someone and you know they're genuine, and to be fair, 99 people are genuine.
Because people buy from people.
Because people buy from people, exactly, and it's economy that goes round and round. It's
interesting what you said pre-discussion. You said because you couldn't read contracts, you made some errors. You agreed to things that you didn't realise you were signing.
That's true.
But now, then you said something interesting. You said, but now you give it to someone in your team who's better, who's well-equipped accountants and lawyers.
That's right.
And they now advise you, and that's the thing you learned.
That's the thing I learned, and a lot of stuff I get sent to me in my telephone. I can just press a button and it reads it out to me. So I can understand when people's talking to me, but to read it, as you know, I can't read and write. So it's all memory. If I'm looking at words, it could be or a cat. I remember them words. Or, I can look at your magazine, for example. A beautiful magazine. You look at that cover, it's presented well, and it's a name that you wouldn't forget. And other things like that, it's a memory thing. It's really a memory thing.
And do you think people who tell me that are blind, they say their other senses, in other words, their hearing gets better. So, do you think it sharpened your memory even more?
Well, you've got no choice. You've got to, and again, that's where it becomes to be a very trustworthy person. Because my memory's fantastic. I can tell you when I was younger, and I can tell you things I've done when I was in a pram. But a memory's a lot to do with your business as well. You've got to have a good memory, I think, and to get to a level, you've got to trust people, haven't you?
Do you think you not being able to read or write? I mean, most people would have given up and said, well, look, I'm never going to achieve anything in life. So my parents told me, because my father worked in a foundry, he said, because he couldn't read or write. He couldn't read or write at all. And I think numbers, he memorized certain numbers, so he knew. And he said to me, you're going to have to get an education, because I know how debilitating or how much of a disability it is not being able to read or write. And so therefore, his argument was he ended up doing a labouring job in a foundry because he couldn't read or write. But something drove you. You didn't think like that. You went for it and you said, well, actually, I'm going to... So what was it? Did it never even occur to you? Couldn't read or write, you just went for it? Is that a mindset thing?
Well, a few years ago, it was very embarrassing to say that you couldn't read and write, and you become more successful as the years goes on. But, we've had good times, we've had bad times. And I'm sure in business, lots of people has had bad times as well as good times. And it's a thing that you've got to just sort of accept. And, to say to someone, well, actually, I can't read and write, it's a bit embarrassing. But then there's other ways of covering it. So could you read that, for me, I haven't got my glasses, or you could get around that way by getting someone to tell you what it means or what it is. So yeah, it's a memory thing, isn't it? It's a memory thing.
But Cresswell, it's deeper than that. I mean, something inside you drove you, despite, I'm going to call it a disability.
Yeah,
at the moment,
no, that's
if you
fine.
don't mind me saying.
No, I do not.
And some people would just say, never mind embarrassment. Actually, I can only achieve this much in life because I haven't got this, and this. But you coming from a background that could be quite discriminatory.
That's
people could look
true,
at you.
yes, yeah.
You could read and write. So is this a mindset? Did your mind say, actually, I don't care about these problems. I don't see problems. I see opportunities. And you just, I still can't believe you went abroad. Yeah. But is that a mindset thing?
You've actually said it yourself, exactly what it is. I've seen opportunities. So
you don't see negatives, you see positives.
Positive, and if you think positive, you do positive. You go, I do believe in taking little bits of chances, not too many, but take a chance and, think positive. And that's the way forward with anybody, and sense. Think forward in senses. For lots of opportunities for people out there that's got very good educations, and they do make very successful people. And then you get someone, I employ a number of people, and some of them, as we do our checks, because obviously I've got good loyal staff, and some people that can't read and write, they've got the experience because they've got sense to go forward, and they're looking to make and grow bigger, even though they can read and write, but they haven't had the qualifications of a college or all these opportunities that lots of people have had.
Do you think the fact that you didn't get an education meant, I'm going to be very careful with words here,
That's fine.
you employ a lot more common sense than perhaps people who have a great education, make assumptions and then go wrong, whereas you, because you know, well, I haven't got the education, you ask those basic common sense questions.
Yeah, if I do an interview with somebody, you know, I
Yeah.
employ, I like to see them and talk to them myself. I have half an hour with them, and I can ask them various questions, you know, and if the answers is coming out right, and, you know, whether it's be a salesman, a groundman, a developer, you know, tree surgeons, whoever it might be, if they give me the right answers, and I think myself, you know, we know what they're talking about, but it's not to say that I haven't had the people that does work for me that's got very good qualifications. So the people that I have got, the very best of people that's got good qualifications. For example, I've got operations manager, he's worked in a bank, he worked for Arnold Clark, he collected glasses for me. That was only about 8 years ago. Now he's in a position getting a good salary, big commissions, and he's sort of, I've led him the way of making sure that successful businesses work. And a lot of my staff I have trained up, and they've took the education off me and went forward. And I suppose it's not been, I'm not boasting about that, it's just common sense, you know. It's like, you know, a shop closing at 5 o'clock. If there's a customer at 10 o'clock at night, I'll be there selling it.
Well, it was interesting. I shouldn't have said this, but I had a real problem with the NHS recently, and we called in, and it was about 4:30. I'm just going to pick this up with you, and we said, "Oh, can we get an appointment?" And they said, "Oh no, we can't. All our appointments are shut." So in other words, 6:30 we're gone. Now in the private sector, if an opportunity has come to see one extra person, you take it.
Of course you do, yeah.
But they said, boom, 6:30, sorry, can't. And it's just that difference.
It's just that simple thing. It's
that difference of, there's somebody who needs to see a doctor, but I'm sorry, 6:30 you can't.
yeah, that's not sense, is it really? You know, so that's to me. I mean, I'm not. If you don't mind me saying, your people like from India, and that, they're very same. They're very, very orientated for running businesses. You know, whether it's a supermarket or it's a car, they drive the businesses, and it's a shame that a lot of people don't do that. You know, a lot of people are 9 to 5, and I suppose we've got to have a middle layer of people to do that, haven't we?
Well, it's interesting, and I can say this to you because you didn't go to school, but there's an argument that where we've gone wrong in education is that you educate people to become employees and not entrepreneurs. Now you can't comment because you never went to school, but
That's true.
But that's an argument is that you train people at school to become employees, and we don't train them to become entrepreneurs and risk takers and builders of and creators of wealth. So anyway, that's another argument. So let's go to your wealth creation. So at a young age, you were an entrepreneur at 12, doing things instead of being schooled. You were selling and buying stuff.
Yes.
And you knew exactly instinctively how to do that. You then, incredibly at 17, 18, got into a ferry and started exporting, which is incredible itself. But how did you get into parks and
Caravan parks?
Yeah, and explain what is a caravan park, and explain to me where the business is there. How is that a business?
Well, when I got into parks it was about 1995.
And why parks?
I don't know, to get interested in. I think I remember seeing a friend of, well, a relation of my mother. He was in caravan parks. A fellow called Tom Hartley.
Okay.
And he's a first cousin of my mother. No, my mother's passed now, but many years ago as a kid I used to watch him have a caravan park up in Belzhill in Scotland. And I know his son as young kids, and I sort of looked and I thought, what a business to get into. So he inspired me, I think, the first to get into caravan parks. And I haven't seen what he could do as if I was, let's say, for example, if I was 10, he might have been, or if I say I was 15 or 16, let's get it right, 15 or 16, looking at this guy that was driving Rolls Royces, and I thought, maybe that's the way for me to go. And I think that's where I got inspired from it. And the first park I bought was in Blackpool. It's only a small park for 15. And in 95, I don't know, I just couldn't get it off the ground. So I decided to go away tarmacking again.
Okay.
And I got involved with P&O Ferries. And P&O Ferries was in Belfast, Larne, Scotland, all these dock works, doing the tarmacking for the docks. And so 2 or 3 years I was onto that. Then I bought a park in Scotland. And then the first 18 months, I think I remember I sold about 110 homes, holiday homes.
So people come to
Save for the weekend, have a holiday,
and then you charge them.
and charge them a ground rent.
Got it.
And it's like churn and burn. They maybe keep it 2 or 3 years and
Got
do
it.
for a new one.
Okay.
And the fellow that bought that park off was a fellow called John Morford.
Okay.
Very clever in the industry. I think he sold it for about 140 or 50 million. But that's go back a few years ago. But he sold me a park that he never had no interest in Scotland. And of course, when I went to Scotland, I thought there was 110 rents coming in, but there was only about 40 holiday vans there who was paying rent. The rest of them was all derelict and all down. But I turned that around in 18 months, sold 120 homes in it, made 1.5 million profit,
Nice.
and then sold the park for 1.5 million. The park cost 400,000.
Yeah.
So that got me on the gravy train to go into the caravan park business. And that was on about 25, 26 years ago.
So interesting observation. You were exposed at a young age to seeing someone very successful in business.
That's correct, yeah.
Again, I'm going to another gripe. So one of the problems we have, I think, in society is that kids don't have the exposure to that
Incentive.
kind of entrepreneur for them to then say, I want to do the same. So the problem we have currently, I think, is too many people want to become social media stars because that's what they see.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough entrepreneurs have got the credit that they should get. And I think if we gave them more credit,
Yeah, you get more entrepreneurs.
then you'd get more entrepreneurs and then do what you did, which is inspired by someone else.
That's true.
And
That's
I
true.
think that's just a gripe I've got. So you moved on to one park, then another park, then another park, and obviously you started to do very, very well. Now, there's a question around housing, cost of living. Do you think your style of housing, do you think that could help us with the housing crisis? Is that...
It can, yes, it can. There's a very good friend of mine called Alfie Best. He was on the phone to me a couple of days ago, and we were speaking about the £400 supplement for the government.
Yeah.
And I agree that the £400 supplement for the government should go to these people that live in park homes. Why are they any different?
Yeah.
They pay the rates, they pay the gas, they pay the
Yeah.
electricity. The council can receive the money. So, you know, it was just a conversation out with him. So I think with the residential holiday and residential homes, there's benefit for everything. Nobody's going abroad, so if they want to go for a nice weekend, remember you got, you know, if it's a park that's open for 11 months of the year, they've got 48 weeks holiday in. You know, for pay the site fees, come up to a little holiday van, a bit of entertainment, which is nice, and it's keeping the money into the country if you want. To me, it's a good idea to get the growth up and get more industry for the government. And the residential people that buys park homes, they might have come out of this house with an acre of land or 3/4 of an acre of land. They're getting older, they're 60, 70-year-old, they can't bend down anymore.
Yeah.
And these are very, like little bungalows, easy to maintain, and very low cost running. So it's for older people, it makes sense. And they've got something in common because you've got to be over 50 to sell these homes. You know, well, that's the law that we put out. You're over 50s. Well, most people's over 60s. They're retired. They've got something in common. It could be 300 or 400 or 200, and they've also got something in common with community areas, something to do, and something in common. So
It's an important part of the housing solution.
well, they build houses today, and actually some park homes are built better than houses today. The way they build them,
Wow.
you know, and that's amazing. The way the leaps and bounds how they went forward. But for the housing market, I think for the retirement people, it's a wonderful thing, and especially if you've got a nice park that's well operated.
I hear that despite having grown a really great business empire, despite employing all these people, you still are very hands-on.
I am,
And you
yes.
still. We spoke earlier that one of the ways, because I said to you with numbers and things, and one of the ways you said you knew what was going on was that multiple checks would come in front of you for your signature,
That's true, yeah.
and you would ask those very basic questions: what is this for?
If I didn't recognise it,
Yeah, and do I reckon, and relying on this great memory you have.
yes.
But of course, you also then said, in order to scale, to get bigger and bigger, you can't keep checking all those checks.
That's right, you can't. You have to have a bit more trust there.
Yeah, but then you said what you've relied on is your sons coming in,
That's
bringing a
right.
fresh set of eyes. So my question next is, I've met a lot of family businesses where the kids were, my children are now beginning to work. So I know the dynamics. How is it an asset or a liability having your children working in your business? And so before you answer that question, let me just give you an example. So some people make their children work harder because the staff people will think, oh no, they're getting a bit of an easy ride here. Some are more accommodating and saying, it's all right, it's my son or my daughter. What's your stance on employing your children in your business?
Well, firstly, my two oldest sons, they've got their own businesses.
Okay.
They've got their own caravan park businesses. They do what they do. Two of my sons, which is Cresswell and Asa, they're directors with a company with me. And it's not to make them feel important. They operate the smaller parks. I operate the big park. Well, we have one big park. The rest of them smaller parks. And this year, for the last 6 months, one of my sons has been working with me on the bigger parks, and I found it very, very good.
Oh, okay.
Now, the reason I find it good for is I got told, I never got told I'm too old. I got told, you've got tired eyes, you need refreshing things up, Dad. You know, you said to yourself, what does he know? But then you think, you look around, you take a minute to think about it, and you absorb it, and you think, you know something, you're right. You know, where I love what I do, I enjoy what I do. I wake up every morning and think it's a brand new day, what I'm going to do today.
Positive.
Positive, as we talked earlier.
All the time, positive. Opportunities.
But my sons will do the same. Where they'll fetch ideas to the table. And I think we should get some new lights up there, Dad. I don't like spending money, but Dad, you can't let things collapse and go stale. Keep going. You know, this is what it's all about. And they keep me active. Like, we'll go for a game of squash or go for a game of badminton. So so
they bring extra energy.
The answer to the question is yes. They inspire me and they fetch more ideas to me going further, which obviously I want to keep as a family business so my sons can pass it down to their sons and their sons can pass it down to their sons. So I want to make a bit of a legacy. Try and get richer than Alfie Best if we can.
So that means you're never going to sell.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
It's interesting because when I asked Narinder, who runs a hotel chain, and I said, he's got a son who works in the business. When I said to him, are you looking to sell? Instantly he said no.
Well, that's the same as me. Definitely
Instantly
not.
he said no.
No.
He said, I want to leave it and let it carry on.
Yeah.
And create that legacy. I also spoke to a good friend of mine who's got two sons who've just come into the business. And he said, actually, the fact that his two sons have come in gives him a renewed vigour to grow the business even more because he knows there's something to pass on. So it's an interesting as psychologically
Yes.
it can push you.
Yeah,
if you
go to as you get people, and I've talked to people before, especially the people who buys park homes off me, and they've had a transport business or whether it's a chain of fish and chip shops, and they come to me and they say, you know, I'm selling my business. Why are you selling it? Because my son's not interested. He wants to be a school teacher.
Yeah.
He wants to be a policeman.
Yeah.
They don't want to carry the business, so what good is it? And these are people that's bought homes off me that's retired and moved on the park. So lovely business, wonderful businesses off. Whether it's £1 million or £2 million or 1.5 billion, whatever it might be, they've sold the business because the family don't want to take it on. But I think you're lucky to see that your family want to stay in the same business, because it means when I'm completely gone, that my sons and my grandsons is going to continue what I've started off 30 years ago, 28 years ago, whatever it might be.
So you're very much hands-on. You've got your sons working with you. The business is at full throttle. Do you find a way of relaxing or not really? And just
Actually, certainly do, yeah.
how important is that?
It's very important. Because I can maybe go into the office and 3 accountants and whatever it might be, and calling managers in, right, what's happening here, what's happening there, and then you might have 2 or 3 hours of that, and one thing I think, right, stop there, let's take a break, and I'll sneak out the back down, jump on a lawnmower or a machine, so I could cut that grass. You can't hear your telephone, you can't hear much what's going on. You just concentrate on cutting your lawns and making the park look nice. You know, it's just a way of switching off.
Is that important?
Very important, yeah.
Why is that important?
Well, some people might go and take a lunch and a glass of wine,
Yeah.
or some people might go for a walk. For me, being active, doing something. I've just bought a lot of plants, and I can drive machines, but my men don't like me when I get new machines because I'm like a kid with a new toy. So
Yeah,
buy
yeah.
a machine, a 15-ton digger might cost £100,000. I'll jump on a plane because I can drive all machines.
Yeah.
Been in the industry of tarmacking.
Yeah.
So I play about with these machines, and then next thing I say, right, you're making a good job, and they look at each other and think, and they often say, please don't touch the machine, Mr. Welch, we know it's yours, but leave it to us, you're just making big holes. So, but the grass cutting, I'm very good at that. I've got some good lawnmowers, John Deere's. So,
And when you're relaxing, do you think about the business or do you just shut off?
no, I was just thinking about cutting grass.
Wow.
Just switch off completely. And if I have an hour, 2 hours, or sometimes I'm stay for the rest of the day, 5 or 6 hours. And when I go back in the office, like I've just woken up, I'm brand new again.
So the reason why I asked that question, and we're going to be close to finishing, is there is a school of thought that if you take time away, I think you've just answered that question a second ago, completely shut off, when you come back, you're a lot more energized, a lot more renewed, and you come up with more ideas.
That's right.
So instead of, and some entrepreneurs do say, well, how do you find that work-life? And there is a school of thought that if you do take some time out, you come back with a fresh set of eyes,
Yes.
re-energized,
Yeah, you do, 100%.
as opposed to just trying to get as many hours.
Correct, and another way as well I switch off, believe it or not. I normally finish work about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I can go to the bar and have myself a couple of gins. I don't take enough drinks, so I can't drive the next day if I'm going
No.
to drive, but I'm normally on the estate anyway, so if I've had one too many, maybe 2 or 3 gins, wherever it might be, and I get into deep thought then, that's when I come up with a lot of ideas, because I'm not talking about what I'm doing or I'm not working, but I can come up with lots of ideas. I'll say to my son, if he's with me, I'll say, just put this down on your phone, and I'll come up with some 6 or 7 different things I might say to him the next day. Dad, what about something? Oh yeah, that was a good idea, yeah. And so the thoughts is like 3 times better being having a game of chess with my son or a game of drafts and just socialising of a night time comes up with lots of ideas. Yeah, really good.
I'm now going to finish with my final question. But before I ask the question, let me just sum up what you've said. So you're somebody who can't read or write,
Correct.
somebody from an ethnic background that wasn't applauded, where people just saw you as a gypsy.
Gypsy.
But you showed an extraordinary mindset that you didn't see a disability, you saw the world as a great opportunity.
That's correct, yeah.
You realised, because you weren't in school that often, that you weren't maximising being there, so you might as well do something else. And you went for it, you were single-minded, you were
Thinking
focused.
positive.
So I suppose, so a lot of people, and it's just a thought now, a lot of people use all kinds of excuses of why they haven't achieved in life or haven't got to where they have. But actually you've blown that theory completely, because you've said, actually, if you've got a positive mindset and if you've got the way
100%.
forward and you're focused, despite what other people may see as a disadvantages, you've gone for it. So I suppose I'm now going to ask you 3 tips you would give for someone who wants to go into business. What 3 tips, if I sat here and said, Mr. Welch, I want to go into business, what 3 tips would you give me? Particularly as you've got that incredible positive mindset. What 3 tips would you give me?
Well, one, look, education is very important. We know that. So the education is a good point. I'm not going to say to nobody, don't go to school.
Yeah.
Get your education. Do it. But having had your education, add to the education, I'm going to say this, which is a very common word, common sense. Use your own initiative to find out if whether you're employing someone or you're going to work for someone, but look at the bigger, brighter picture. But don't look at too far in advance, thinking 20 years I'm going to do that. Think about it, what I can do in the next month or 6 weeks, how can I achieve something. Get that goal into the sights.
Like it.
You know, that's one answer.
Education is important.
Education.
Goal setting, make sure you're
Make
near a
it-
goal.
get
Don't
near
go.
the goals. Don't think I'm going to
Yeah.
not be a bus driver for 20 years. It's like over a few years, as I said earlier on when we were doing the interview about the guy that collects glasses for me. He's now operations manager with 20 staff or 18 staff underneath. He reports to me and tells me what's happening. He's in a good salary. He's in a good position. He's bought his own house. That's only over 5 or 6 years. So don't think in 20 years I'm not going to be the conductor of the bus or I'm going to be a bus driver. Think a bit afield, a bit more. It's out there to be got. And wherever it is, I can only say for number 3, whether you're colour, you're a gypsy, you're a Jew, whoever you are, it makes no difference. We're all human beings. And I think you've got to go out there and think positive. Don't think what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
Think for yourself and think positive. Be polite, be nice, and it goes a long way. That's the 3 things.
I think it's fantastic, and you obviously referred to the word trust. You've talked about surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with people with energy, with
Yeah.
enthusiasm. You've talked about taking time out where possible to come out with some new ideas, creative new ideas. But I think my biggest takeaway is that you didn't see the negative, you only saw the positive. And Mr. Welch, look forward to seeing you at the Nachural Summer Awards where you'll be our keynote speaker.
I'm looking forward to it myself.
And we'll pick up that. And then, of course, one of the previous editions, you were actually in the Business Influencer. And so, thank you for coming all the way from Scotland.
It's been my pleasure. Really nice.
Thank you for coming to this wonderful university and imparting some fascinating knowledge and insights into the way one should approach life and business. Mr. Welch, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed the interview with you.
Thank you.
I look forward to the event.
Cheers.